citizen's arrest and lawful detainment in many areas is only allowed if you witness a felony, misdemeanor, or breach of peace, and use of force is absolutely not allowed or justified unless you're directed to by the police department, for instance, saying, grab that guy, I'm trying to catch him, all the way up to, he's got my gun, he dropped it, if you've got a gun pointed at him, that sort of thing. This is under Pennsylvania law. It's not just that you reasonably believe or unreasonably have decided to assume a felony has been committed. The reason for this is quite simple. You're not a cop. Cops are supposed to be put through more training. Doesn't always happen. And they're given more leeway, even though I don't agree with that sometimes. And it's based on them following the same laws you and I have to, because the central conceit is that a police officer, while they're allowed to push things, we're not allowed to, but we should be held into the same laws, which we are not. But again, suspicion isn't the same for a citizen versus a police officer. The only exception is if there's a potential imminent threat to yourself or others that you're protecting, or you're put in the position of being required to protect others, such as taking an oath. Some oaths for politicians sound similar and may even include similar wording, but that isn't necessarily the same thing, depending on your municipality. 2013, January 26, more than a month after Sandy Hook happened. In Braddock, Pennsylvania, Mayor John Fetterman heard fireworks, or noises like fireworks, or gunshots. He chased and detained Christopher Miyares, a very cooperative man wearing headphones, black running clothes, and a mask, who was unarmed, who claimed he was just jogging or running, and claimed John pointed a gun at him, a shotgun, at his chest while he reloaded or loaded 5 rounds and then aimed the gun at his face, which there's a lot wrong with that, and it may not have actually been what exactly happened, but we're dealing with what he said. John, however, said he did not have a round chambered or the safety off. He pointed the gun in a way to show that he was armed, probably low ready position, but we don't have details, and never pointed the gun at Chris. Years later, one of them ran for higher office. The other one went to prison for automotive kidnapping of a woman passenger at knife point. Weigh this how you will. Number 1, John pointed a gun at somebody and didn't get his head blown off. It's Pennsylvania. No matter where you are, no matter what people will tell you, by hook or by crook, you can legally get away with packing heat. A, you can get a permit. May cost a lot, you might have to go through hoops, but you might be able to get a permit. B, some things are not regulated as firearms and are not able to be regulated because they are not considered firearms. The ATF in every state and county and city I've ever heard of says that a muzzle-loading black powder or smokeless powder firearm that uses a separate primer that's put in the back of the breech plug that's in the barrel rather than a breech face, that does not constitute a firearm, even though it obviously can do just as much damage. And me carrying a Diablo double-barrel 12-gauge handgun, smoothbore, isn't legally restricted in any way. Nor is me carrying a new model Army revolver that uses a similar mechanism. Or a pea shooter. Next, at short ranges, it doesn't matter what the cartridge or gun is. Everybody's a sharpshooter at 6 feet, and every gun is lethal unless you have a bizarrely low power round. 25 ACP, 22 short. Hell, 22 CB and BB caps can be deadly and are deadly at short range. If I'm 5 feet away from you and I extend my arm, that's lethal range for basically a pellet gun. And the fact that this guy drove an F-150 pickup with a shotgun in it, white guy, going after a guy, by the way, who happened to be black, but that's not really relevant because of the way the guy was dressed. Let's just assume that that's not a factor. Goes up to somebody with a falling presumption. I've heard gunshots. I've seen somebody running away from me. I'm going to pursue them, increasing my likelihood of getting my ass shot. Take a gun with me to make it to where the person I point a gun at is legally justified in killing me, And I'm going to do it while chasing him in a pickup truck, looking like the biggest bubba that ever bubbed, while carrying a bubba gun. I mean, this is so many layers of, are you an idiot? This is a Darwin Award. Let's assume the jogger broke the law. Let's say the guy actually had a firearm on his person. Well, no, even if he had a firearm, it's not technically, he might, after you're caught with the firearm, you're guilty of a felony. If someone points a shotgun at you, and God help him, if he had recorded this, hold up a cell phone, are you pointing a gun at me? Yes. I want you to put your gun down. You don't need to point a gun at me. I'm holding a cell phone at you. I'm detaining you. I'm going to leave the area because you're a threat to my life. I'll shoot you. Bang, bang, bang. If I was on a jury, I'd be saying, you're not letting the guy leave. He's not a threat to you. If he's leaving, who are you protecting? Being the mayor doesn't mean you're the boss of everybody. I mean, that's one of many assumptions I could make at this point. Why are you going towards danger? You're not a cop. It's not your job. Are you a firefighter? No. Then don't run into a burning building. But my Second Amendment, your Second Amendment right to self-protection and to keep and bear arms, you might decide, assumes that you're allowed to be a militia running around in the street doing basically martial law. When people are paranoid about that, usually talk about this. That's not going to fly in court either. You're actively seeking out someone to cause a confrontation, and you're instigating something that would justifiably get you shot. You're basically doing a gunfight. Or not. Comment below. But anyway, he didn't get shot. And also, well, if he had a gun, okay, what if he didn't have a gun? You can grab a person's shotgun, shove the muzzle under their jaw, and fire it by pulling the trigger. So, yeah, a low-ready position or not, if somebody comes at me with a firearm, I'm not going to hold still. Hold still. That's not an instruction I'm going to follow. I'm running away from you. You're pointing a gun at me. I'm going to evade you. You're in a car. You're going to be reluctant to leave your car. I'm going to deliberately do something to get you back in the car, and then I'm going to take a route, because I'm a jogger, and go through somewhere where you can't drive a car unless you're willing to hit a bunch of trees and shit. I don't want to die. I'm running away. If you corner me to where I can't run away because you think that's a good idea, you're giving me every reason legally to be able to get away with turning the gun on you or drawing a weapon. You're pinning me in a corner. I'm not required not to do this. Well, okay, what's self-defense? Let's do a self-defense. Did this mayor have a self-defense justification? No. Was he defending anybody else? No, there was no clear and present danger. Well, no, there isn't any Well, what if the guy discharged the gun into the air and caused the noise, or fired the gun? After the fact, you'd have to prove that the person had actually legitimately fired the gun, which he didn't, and that firing of the gun actually after the fact, you'd have to justify it. Because, for some reason, even at the time, there's no way in hell anybody would believe you thought you had a good reason to do this. If it was justifiable after the fact, okay, we let you have a walk, but that's only because you actually did something right by accident. But at the time he was doing it, there was no justification either. If somebody fires a gun up in the air, could have been blanks. Unless you get the casings. Maybe it's a revolver. Maybe you don't get the casings. So you can't even confirm it was blanks. But you can't confirm it was bullets either. Was there a broken window? No. After the fact, was there anybody shot? No. Okay, what if the guy fired a gun and did some damage? Let's say he did. Is this the person you're supposed to... There are 100 layers here where you don't have a justification. Did you personally witness a criminal action? No. Then you don't have a justification for any of this involving a firearm in Pennsylvania. In other states, and yeah, I'm going to get bubbles in the comment section. No, you do not have a valid reason to do this. On your own property? Sure. Somebody goes in your backyard and you hear a loud noise, sounds like gunshots, and you see somebody back there. Get off my property. Fuck you. I heard gunshots. Are you armed? I'm not answering that. Get off my property or I'm going to shoot you. At that point, you're the one endangering yourself and maybe somebody downrange with the shot. There's no reason for you to stay in the backyard. You have to state a valid reason. Good example. What are you doing at my window? I thought this was my window. I'm trying to get back into my apartment. Sorry, Fred. I didn't count the number of windows. Oh, yeah. I can go into my window and you can confirm it's my room. I know you. Okay, you can get in. That happened to me. I almost got shoved out of the window. The guy would have been totally justified because I was trying to open the window and he thought I was breaking in. I thought it was my window because he had placed the same thing in the window I did by accident. I locked myself out of my apartment because I'm an idiot. That happens. Doesn't happen anymore because I learned the lesson. But the point here, okay, I got locked out a while ago, I'll admit it. But this time I didn't break into the wrong building. It's a building instead of an apartment. But it's still my fault. What this guy should have said as mayor is not invoked Sandy Hook or anything. He should have said, due to recent circumstances, which I can't use to justify it, I pursued somebody that I had no reason to believe was really a criminal, much less somebody I would have any business stopping. And what the hell was I going to do with the shotgun when I brought it with me? I made a mistake, I did something stupid, and that's the reason I'm against firearms. Which is what he could say. He could just say, yeah, I don't have a justification for this. But he probably has been told by his lawyer not to ever admit that because the guy in jail, even though he's in prison for something pretty heavy, could take him to court. But I would have said to hell with the lawyer and said, yeah, this wasn't justified. I shouldn't have drawn a weapon on you, and I'm sorry. I lost control. I got scared. I was afraid for everybody else in the area. This was on a weekend. It wasn't a time when the guy would be going towards a school shooting up the place. He didn't see a firearm. He didn't have a justification for it. He was completely in the wrong. Yes. And this may be part of the reason he's against firearms. It may not be that he's being a hypocrite. It may be that this is the reason. And maybe he doesn't feel comfortable talking about it because no matter what he says, he's going to sound like an idiot or a racist or all of it. Conclusion. I don't believe this was racially motivated. I don't even think that should be in here as a discussion. Mitigating this. Don't pursue somebody unless you're a cop. Only pursue somebody if you know for a fact that you could do this and it's valid. And then again, if you're not a cop, you can't do it. No, I don't care if you're ex-military or a vet. You're not qualified either because it's not your damn job. If you're a cop from another state, you're not allowed to do it in my state. Well, we got laws in my state. I don't give a fuck. You don't know our laws. I'm trying to enforce a law that doesn't exist here. No. Just because you have a gun and the will and the means to do something with it doesn't mean you should. And it doesn't mean your fellow man or your neighbors or, well, we the people of the state of whatever you're in, Oregon in my case, would permit it. We decide what you're allowed to do while acting like a cop. Being mayor does not mean you're a cop. Some conservatives, not all, will immediately try to justify, even though this guy's a liberal, and apparently they claim he's a gun grabber, they'll justify his behavior because they want to have the right to go out and patrol their neighborhood at night, acting exactly like, certain groups of people that are jokingly referred to as a militia, who are based on maintaining certain indentured servitude things. And you sound like it when you talk about it. No, you're not allowed to patrol the neighborhood armed thug-like, questioning everybody, and then bitch when the cops do it. They're legally required to do it under very limited conditions. You're not allowed to go do it with carte blanche. That's not how it works. No, you don't have more right to do this than a cop. This is a central conceit that cannot be done by certain people because they want to bully people with a gun. But then again, if we're in the middle of a hurricane situation and people are patrolling to make sure nobody breaks into my business or my house, I understand. I don't want them stopping me because I'm simply walking down the street saying, papers, please. Don't bitch about tyranny if you're going to go ahead and commit it. Next, the guy's lucky he didn't die that day because the guy could have shoved his own gun in his face and pulled the trigger if it was loaded, which he claims it wasn't, or shot him with a firearm that he would have been legally able to carry. There's no law against jogging while armed. I, at one time or another, may have driven a bicycle while armed. It's not illegal. I would have got a permit and everything else. Or I would have just carried a black powder or smokeless powder muzzle loader and not had to deal with any of that. Hint, hint, get a damn muzzle loader. But it doesn't have to be black powder. Do I believe that this ex-mayor who's running for whatever position should be excluded based on this? He should be excluded from owning a firearm. He should admit that that's why he shouldn't have it. Maybe that's what's motivating him. But other than that, yeah, he was totally in the wrong. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.